Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. I just finished off some map work that you can, well, see in the distance. Not quite done with this one, but it is a 4x map, so put that away, because that's not what we're doing today. Today, we are working on a new grain mill right here, because we've got a lot of wheat, but we don't have any way to actually mill it into flour. So I am going to set it today. You can see something else that's on the map. Been doing a little bit of pixel art with essentially chunks, because that's how big it has to be seen on a map that's a 4x, but well, let's get into the building. So the base is going to be cobblestone for the entirety. And we're going to bring it out to be almost an octagon. Now, depending on how close to the edge this ends up being, it'll either be on the side or the front as the entrance. But in either case, we want a 4-block difference on each edge before we start a 6-block wall. So we'll get rid of just this very edge of the farm, because 1 or 2 crops isn't as useful as a mill. Go. And we'll just bring this all together to connect it. Now, because there's less space, we're going to be putting the front door here. And we're actually going to leave the flooring section for last. Bring all of this up first. Now, should be able to have windows here. Seeing a bit more room than I expected. That's because I didn't count that end correctly. So it is a 6-block set, not a 8-block, because I used the last block of the side divides as the first block here. So I'm going to bring this out just one more to allow it to be a 6-block instead. Now these are going to be simple, full-length windows, because now we don't have the space for a middle divider. And I'm going to bring these all the way up. Now over time, I will add mossy cobblestone and other weathering. It doesn't make sense that a fresh building would have mossy cobblestone on it. But as more of a gradient and a weathering effect, over time in the background videos, you'll see I'll add a little bit of mossy cobblestone, or even mossy bricks, depending on where, because I want a brick front entryway somewhere. Now working on the top, I want to have a full slanted start to this roof. And it doesn't matter what game mode you're playing in, messing with the stairs is always going to take the longest. There's not exactly a way to speed up the orientation of stairs. So, this will take a bit. And I just want to add these stairs here, so it's not just a sheer wall going 1 block in once we start on the wooden section, because only the bottom is going to be full stone. And it's full stone for a very good reason. You might not know this, but grain flour, and especially dust in the air from actually dehusking grain, is incredibly flammable. Like, laughably flammable. Farmhand napalm, essentially. You can light it on fire with friction if you really feel like it. So the base of the mill, where the actual grinding and the dust is going to be, will be stone, because otherwise you're making a massive fireball by accident. And if you are attempting this, use the stone cutter. You can turn 1 cobblestone into 1 stair, instead of losing half of your cobblestone making stairs. Now, I'm gonna find the middle of all of this, because this is where we're gonna put the grinding station. And I want smooth stone, which is just baking stone in a furnace. So that's regular stone. You just put it in the furnace again after smelting it from cobblestone, and you get smooth stone. And I'm using smooth stone because, well, as this name suggests, it's smooth, and you'd want a smooth grinding surface. And I'm going to put a 4-corner hopper here, as well as a half slab above it, so that if you actually did have grain dropping from above through some system, if you wanted to make this functional, you could. I'm not, because we're a little tight on space in this corner, and it would require more complex upstairs department. So there we go. And I'm going to surround this with smooth stone. And this would just be to prevent any grain or flour falling out the backs and sides. It'd all come down into the center. Now, I've already shown this once I'm pretty sure it was the brewery, where they were dehusking grain and grinding it for just grain alcohol. But you can take grindstones and place them on a block above, so they're upside down, and they look like a set of millstones grinding on a surface. Now, you could have a bunch of different things actually up here as their controlling unit. If you were playing a modded section, you could very likely actually have your grinding set up here, which we are going to do in a survival series after this chapter is done. If you haven't seen that, that's the Terra Firma craft, where I've expanded a field, so we're going to be making a proper windmill that actually works in that series. But in vanilla, this is about as close as we can get to that. So above this, for the power, which would be direct mechanical power, we're going to use stripped oak logs as the sort of mechanical bearings coming down the length. And I'm going to cap this cobblestone stair section just here to allow you to have a bit more of a divide in between. Now, this is a bit faster than you would in survival, because you can actually place them properly. And I think I'll just fill in these corners as well as getting, yes, some slabs. And this will give more of a gradient to actually going up into the tower. Now, this will be 2 to 3 floors, depending on how you count it, above ground level. And you will be able to get to the very top in survival in this design, for the need for maintenance or something along that line. Now, I'm gonna just stack these out, because I want a wooden floor above this main room. Now, a wooden floor wouldn't be recommended unless it's treated wood, which, ironically, by using a flammable oil, can be made harder to burn. But, yeah, we're just going to be using oak planks and bringing this core section up. Now, this tower is going to be larger than the granary tower, which is where we've been storing grain and things until now. And I want a slab floor, but I want it in line, just here. I have to leave a gap somewhere here to allow for a ladder up. Because though scaffolding might look a little better, we don't have access to bamboo in this part of the world. And as always, I want to show you what you can do and how to make the most out of the materials you do have, no matter what game mode you're playing in. So just up here, I'll leave a little almost L shape there for the ladder components. And this will be the floor for the second floor. And we'll bring up areas here to be able to make windows in between these log sets. Though it's not easy to see, you might want to continue the logs underneath these sets as well, just have a continuous, if you could. But in either case, this is a lot of oak logs in this build, so it's not the end of the world if you don't, because it's very difficult to see. But I am just going to splurge and add a couple more logs just on these corners to set things in. So the way that this is designed, it would be that these logs are going into stone capping spaces built out of a cobblestone cemented roof. And that's how they support the rest of the mill above. They're built into the man-made stone structure itself. So I think I'll just cover these areas. So these corners you could have as your windows, or the internal set could be your windows. I'm going to use the internal set. If you want to use the corners, I've shown a couple of different designs that can do it. Most likely you are going to want to use probably gates or iron bars if you want to use the corners. But if you want to do the center, you can use just about anything. In this case, I'm going to be using fences, as you can still see through them, but they are a immovable surface, so you're not going to accidentally open them while climbing or trying to do other things. So this is about the layout of the first floor above ground level, so the second floor. And now I'm just going to show you how I'm going to set the ladder. It's going to climb directly up here, and then this area here. And now this will climb up to the next floor. I think, yes, I'm just going to convert these into side logs as well, so that I can separate each floor and you can visually tell which floor everything is from the outside, because it'll have a full log separating it. So I'll raise this up one, and then separate the next floor by a full log. That'll now also give me space to add the next floor that you'd actually stand on, without it taking up part of the roof of the floor below it. So I'll just increase the height a little bit. And now using wood stairs, these are the most expensive blocks of the entire build, because you can't put them in stone cutters. And for some reason we don't have a wood saw or a wood cutter in vanilla. So all of these are made with the full amount of planks. And you get 4 stairs in total for each recipe. It's horrible, but the price you pay for, I guess, aesthetics. At the very least, we can use slabs with the rest of the floor to mitigate the price a little bit. This is a very oak-heavy building, but since we had to clear out this area to actually put the fields in, you would have, I've done the math, you would have about this much. So it's not the end of the world, but using everything of about an hour's work of cutting down trees on one building is not exactly a nice thing. It's not exactly a nice feeling. So you would have to farm some trees, but this is completely possible in survival without setting up a auto wood farm. I'm just going to cap off the tops and the bottoms of this floor, just as I've done the ones below, and then we'd have the third floor finished after we fill in these corners all the way to the top. So above this will be the windmill bearings and the actual windmill sail connection point to these central mechanical bearings, which in this case are stripped oak logs to serve as thick mechanical bearings made of wood. Because in this case, we don't want a one-directional windmill. Because we have an ocean on one side, we have mountains on the other, and we have a plains. So there's going to be wind from every direction, and they're all going to be fighting each other for which one is the strongest at that moment, which would lead to problems of processing. So the way to do this is to have a circular bearing on the top and connect 4 sets of smaller 2-blade windmills. So you have an omnidirectional windmill that will take all wind from every direction and combine it into one mechanical force for grinding that is more consistent. Because it will be capped at the lowest speed, or the highest speed that is the strongest, for all of them. Again, using the most expensive block, wooden stairs, we're going to be making that actual floor to the bearing room, in case you would need to adjust something. In vanilla, we don't have anything to adjust, but it is nice to be able to look out from the very top of your build on occasion. So using the ladders, we can get up there without any issue. Now, for this next area, we are going to be using very thick directional bearings, because we don't have gears or anything like that. We have redstone, that's about it. Here we go. Now, you could use the full cover logs when doing this area just here. I'm not going to, because those are more expensive, and this is already a very resource-heavy build. And I don't want to just be splurging and using whatever resources I want, even in creative, because I want you to be able to at least take something like this and make your own version of it, without absolutely ruining your weekend by having to farm for literal hours just to get enough of one resource. And I'm gonna do the same pattern for the top here in between the bearings. You'll notice this floor is lower, the ceiling is lower than the rest. That is to make it a bit more compact with the bearings, and now the actual bearings themselves. So you bring it up to here, after you've capped out the floor, of course, to actually allow you to move around up here. This floor is going to get a lot more claustrophobic in a second, because I'm going to add more stairs. I know I just talked about making this less resource heavy, but though it's okay to see the inside of the logs from the outside, I don't like seeing them on the inside. So yes, more expensive stairs. But here we go. Uncover the trim of all of this. Now, I have to adjust the ladder a little bit, but that's after we set the bearings in. Because right now, it's time to do the difficult part, I suppose. I'm going to cover these in a set of planks. Except for these windows, I'll have to replace those, I think. Unless I'm doing... No, I'm not doing a 2-bearing. Yeah. So, just open these up. And we'll do a 4-bearing wheel. Now, for a 2-blade windmill, you want one up and you want one down, and you want them all set to the same position. If you have them in different positions, that will make the thing want to skip gears, and it will make it want to stall and have other issues. So you drag your mechanical bearing out this way, all the way out here. So this is very thick, but it's the pattern I want to use. I'm going to move this ladder one to the left and use... Actually, I'm going to use shelves because I haven't used them in a while and I like building with them. So, by placing a stair at the top and the bottom, and 2 to 3 shelves in between, by shifting, you get a solid, slimline ladder that you can climb up the side without too much issue. There you go. And now you're not directly under a mechanical bearing. I could fin that. I don't want to fin that. So, yes, I will show you how to actually get the ladder up in a moment, but for now, we'll just clear out a little bit of area and keep working on the actual windmill bearings themselves. Now, you're going to drag these logs out of every window and have them set out of the tower by 1 block. And this will allow you to put the fences on there, which will be the actual windmill blade, like, trim. The wooden panels that hold the actual sails onto the windmill. There we go. Now this would be more difficult. I suggest building just a temporary platform out of slabs, out of the window directly below it. Up to this area, just so you have something to stand on. And doing all of these top ones at the same time. For this case, I want 4 out from the center, and 4 down from the center. And they're going to be direct opposites of each other. And they're all going to be set to this, so that we don't have gear skipping or anything. Even though this isn't functional, I'd like to treat it as though it is. You could use banners for the sails. I'm going to use wool, because I don't have a way to make the banners look... Well, I don't have a way to weather the banners, and I want these sails to slowly change color as they're in use, because they're going to be outside and in constant use, so it makes sense that they would weather, that they would turn a little gray, some parts would weather before others, things like that. But in either case, now that you've done one, you have to repeat that for the other 3, and you have to keep them in line, so it doesn't cause problems. This isn't a concern right now. It would be a concern in the survival series, though, so it's good to have some practice for it, at the very least. So building this up. Getting the wool is actually the cheapest part of this building, if you've set up the town, as we have for this one, because we have a massive sheep farm. that the now small grain field can be just used to only feed those animals and multiply them. Because now we have this massive field of wheat and carrots that players can eat. So in this case, we're just going to continue this pattern up, all connected to the internal bearing. There we go. Now, you could use waterproofed wool if you were building like sails in real life. You would want probably canvas, which can often be a form of waterproofed wool, among other materials like, I believe, industrial hemp fiber and things like that, where it can be naturally waterproof. Wool is water resistant. It holds its temperature well, but it doesn't hold its form as well. But it is something that can be waterproofed relatively easy with wax coating. So here we have all 4 sails set up. I'm gonna bring this in one more time for the very roof. So it is gonna get just a little bit thinner on the very top. But here we go. And I'm gonna build framed out windows for this very top floor so you can actually look out of the windows and very possibly get out of the windows. You could add a door, but it kind of looks a little goofy with what I'm going to be doing for windows. I'll add a plank there, so it's under the bearing. And this is where, if this was functional, you'd add a switch here to the main bearing, which would stop this contraption. So all of these bearings would stop, so that the ladder could be placed on there and you could climb up. And you'd have a little barrel with ladders or something else to climb up, so that you could walk across this area. Now for here, I want to just put logs as the floor, well, logs as the base of the windows, and then I'm going to use more fences for the windows themselves to actually look out. Here we go. And I'm going to leave a 2-block in that one as the door out. At this height, you wouldn't have to worry about anything except for birds. So though it's not good practice to leave just an open space at the very top of the windmill, it would be negligible if you're using it often. There's no place for them to roost on just this section. So more wood stairs just at the top here to give a bottom lip to the roof. This will bring it out a bit more and have more depth than just a flat base of the roof that suddenly becomes pointed. This will just allow a little bit more difference in between. It also is a good contrast against the solid logs, which is nice. Go. All capped off. Now I'm going to use slabs just on this edge, and I'm going to drag these slabs out 1 block again. And they're going to be the point where the roof goes from expanding from below to expanding from above. So this will be the divide point in between. There we go. And now this is going to go up 1 block. You can just use solid planks for this central part. It's not more efficient to use slabs, that case, but I did that because they're on hand. For this internal, do use planks or doubled slabs if you have an excess of them. And we're going to do an almost circular pattern just around the corner here to bring the peak up of the building. Now every side block goes in above a block of air. It's only these edge trims that are on solid blocks. This allows you to make the peak a little higher. So it should look like this when you're complete. And you can use slabs on the inside to have a more gradual curve up. And if you do it like this, you can still have lanterns on the inside because you can set them on these middle blocks here. And that will be our light source for up here, because mixing highly flammable grain, even if it is at the very bottom of this, with open fire torches is not a particularly wise decision. So I'm going to bring this up with slabs one more time. Bring the internal cavity up with the same slabs. And then I'll cap this off so it's a full block before taking more fences to build a sort of spiral cap to this project. Now, you could put a flag up there on that spiral cap to see which direction it's going, but we don't have flags, we have banners, so I'm not going to do that. But for the internal, you're going to just set these lanterns up. Probably want to set one up here where you'd have the barrel, and you want one on the base on each of these corners just for a little light. And as some spawn proofing as well. Because they can't spawn on the ceiling, they can't spawn on the floor. Speaking of the floor, it's time to do the ground floor. All of the windows being fences once again. And now for the actual floor itself, I'm going to dig out this grass. And I'm just going to replace this floor with bricks, because though the walls could be rough cobble stacked high, you'd want a smooth or at least a brick floor at the bottom. I'll be using stone bricks because right now the town is having a little issue with its clay supply. You can go have a look at one of the shorts just on that. But for the main point, it's just important that we're using a type of smooth floor so that bags of grain and other things don't catch on it. So here we are. I think I'll use just regular brick. I'm not going to bother weathering these, but I will bring down these main supports by one more block, just to have them embedded into the floor. And we're going to be using barrels, and we're going to place them in front of the hoppers, so that if this was functional, the hoppers would drop them into a barrel that could still be opened with the full block that is above. So if you don't have the space for a chest to open, you can always use barrels to just skip that and open it without any space. Here we have a nice stone brick floor. I am rather fond of these, and I'll have to use some stone brick as a trim for the doorway in a moment. But you'd often see either packed dirt or a stone brick floor, so that no bags are catching on it and there's no issues. But a packed floor can still be damaged if there is an accident. The stone brick one, it's a lot harder to damage. And for doors, well, we don't really have any options above oak. Though you would want to use, say, a spruce door that doesn't have any gaps in it, or a metal door like a copper door. Here we go. And now I'm just going to add some front trim, because right now this is looking very boxy on the ground floor. And I'll bring these windows up one more block to give it a little bit more variation, because I don't want to add any weathering just yet. I know I could say, oh, the building materials for this have been waiting for a while, so they got a little bit of moss on them while they were stacked up. But that seems cheap, so in this case I'm just going to use some bricks and a bit more, and I'll add the variation in time. But here we have it, a full 3 to 4 story windmill, depending on how you count it.